Well, Marines are known for many things. Right now, overcoming obstacles, victory in battle, fierce training, competitive spirit, and if I might say so myself, nice uniforms. But the uniform I'm wearing today is as much a symbol of the Marine Corps heritage and virtues as it is a pleasant guise to look at. For example, on the topic of today's theme, my cover, embossed with the eagle, globe, and anchor here, which is symbolic of the Marine Corps' expeditionary service, as well as the naval tradition in the United States of America. On the top here, you see the quatrefoil, which comes from the days of when Marines would board ships, and high above on the riggings would be sharpshooters looking down on the fray. And in order for them to tell the friendly officers from the enemy officers, the quatrefoil would allow them to make that differentiation and allow them to prevent fratricide. This blood stripe on my trousers, the scarlet stripe that runs the length of them, is symbolic of a battle, the Battle of Chapultepec, waged here in the castle of Chapultepec, this hall of Montezuma, which is not only memorialized in this blood stripe, but also in our Marines hymn, which I'm sure you all are familiar with. And today I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about this battle. The Battle of Chapultepec occurring 12 September 1847. And this battle is a piece of war. It's a piece of the Mexican-American War, which waged from 1846 to 1848. And this battle was fought largely over territory, specifically Texas. Texas at the time seceded from the Republic of Mexico and said, hey, United States, let us annex to you, let us be part of the Union. And they had their own Texas Revolution. One of the most notable battles you've heard of is the Alamo. And America noticed that and said, okay, well, let's get involved in this war. But Mexico was like, whoa, this is our territory. So war was declared. And the battle was fought over this territory that you see outlined on the slide. The battle that we're talking about today of Chapultepec waged in the modern-day Mexico City area. And it happened on the heels of a battle of Molino del Rey, which you see down here. 3,400 American personnel were commanded by General Winfield Scott, and they had just pushed the Mexican forces from this position here up to the north into the castle of Chapultepec, where 3,400 Mexican troops were under the command of Colonel Nicholas Bravo. Now, as you can see here, the Mexican army has a distinct advantage. They're on the high ground. That's about a 600-foot precipice up there, sloping terrain which leads up to that embattlement. They also have a good supply of water, and not to mention the fact that they're in a castle. They're in a defensive position. So despite the parity in the number of forces that we see here, they have a distinct advantage, and it took a lot of convincing to get Winfield Scott to get in and say, well, I think we should go ahead and commence with this battle. And he had a cast of characters who were supporting him. Old Winfield Scott, colloquially known as Fuss and Feathers, his attention to detail, would be very good in the Mexican War and would eventually lead to victory there. And he turned out to be the longest serving general in United States history. And he was backed up by David Twiggs, who incidentally was the son of the first Jewish governor in the United States, who happened to be the governor of Georgia. He turned out to be a Confederate general, along with the noted Pierre Beauregard. Pierre Beauregard was actually the one who convinced Winfield Scott to attack, and not only make the attack in period, but also make the attack from the southwest, instead of coming in from due south, taking advantage of not only the gradual terrain, but also cutting off the enemy's water supply. Perhaps the most noted in this cast was Robert E. Lee, who at the time was a captain in the engineer company of this force. Leading the charge into the breach was Major Levi Twiggs, the son of the general described in the previous slide. Major Levi Twiggs led the raiding party on the day of the battle. On the morning of the battle, artillery volleys commenced the battle, softening the castle and the enemy occupants, allowing the troops to marshal at the base and get ready to commence the raid. The raid, led by Major Twiggs stalled initially because they didn't have the equipment that they needed to get over the walls. They were missing the ladders. But once they finally got there, they were able to scale the walls magnificently, clearing very quickly the occupants inside. The results? A significant victory in the heart of Mexico during this conflict. 2,600 casualties on the Mexican side compared to 700 on the U.S. side. Not to mention we captured their commander. A huge demoralizing defeat. During this conflict, U.S. officers and non-commissioned officers suffered mostly in those 700 casualties. And many of them were in fact Marines. A result, the Marines decided to commemorate this battle by incorporating the blood stripe in the trousers of their uniform, to be worn shortly after from that point forward. Today, Marines recognize this symbol as a transition from the junior ranks to the senior ranks of leadership. They not only recognize this to commemorate the battle here, but the expectation of future leadership in the Corps. Marines are very proud of their uniform. They're very proud of their tradition. This uniform means a lot to them, and it demands their respect not only of the past, but the leadership they should portray in the future. Thank you.